Hey fellas, what speed of hardware adoption should we reasonably expect from the gaming community, PC or console? Legacy support is great as it allows people with moderately older to significantly older hardware to still participate in the latest games. However, it also tends to hold back new games from reaching the heights they otherwise could have had if they'd simply abandoned older hardware considerations and focused on what's next. Consoles are the prime example, of course, since they have distinct hardware generations that only update every 3 to 7 years. But even PC hardware can start to show its age rather quickly as games try to push the boundaries, e.g., Alan Wake. It's an interesting discussion, right? Because it does fundamentally come down to the concept of there needs to be a reset point in order to actually start to use new features. And it's kind of been blurred with this particular generation. If you compare the transition from PS3 to PS4 to the transition from PS4 to PS5, that was very different. So what is the reasonable speed of hardware adoption? Oliver, any thoughts on this one?
I think consoles sort of set the pace by dint of their relative market size and the kinds of games that tend to be developed around consoles. So I would say every 7 years, roughly speaking, would be a reasonable pace to at least be able to keep pace with running the latest software. Although it kind of depends on what the console spec is relative to PC specs at that time. Like if you had a 2 gigabyte GPU in 2013, that would probably not fare too well in titles released in 2018, right? Even though it would have been a similar generation of hardware relative to consoles. Mm-hmm. So I would say kind of roughly maybe that 5 to 7 year range would be reasonable just to run the games. But obviously if you're aiming to run the games at high settings with new PC graphical features, with path tracing, whatever, that isn't really going to cut it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. You look at the Steam hardware survey, and that pretty much gives you an idea of the transition rate. We are now at the point where, it's 2020 GPUs that are coming to the fore now. 3060 is doing really well. It seems to be at the top most months. And that's like a 3-year-old GPU. But at the same time, there's still people that really, really don't want to let go of their 10 series Pascal cards. But I really think they should. John, what
1650s.
The 1650, man. Just go away. John, what do you think about this? I mean, the transition point was kind of blurred with this generation, but at the same time, cross-gen, I don't know. I do think a lot of people moved across to PlayStation 5 from PlayStation 4.
Yeah, no, that is kind of a tricky one.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think with PCs, just like PC itself is intentionally like an open platform, so I think being able to push whatever you want should always be a thing. And I don't think there really can ever be a fixed sort of point where it says, oh, you can no longer use this hardware, right?
Right.
Because it's gonna vary per game. And
Yeah,
that's the whole thing with minimum requirements on games, is that developers set what you need. And because it's an open platform, I don't think there's anybody's ever going to agree to like, this is a fixed target spec that you need to hit. I think Microsoft tried it at one point. You remember with the Windows Vista like computer score thing?
right.
Yeah, remember you get the number assigned to your system, and they would put it on the box like, oh, if you hit this number, you can play the game, kind of thing. But I think it's gonna have to be the way it's always been. It used to be a lot worse, actually, where PC hardware was you could maybe stay current for a year, and then the following year everything's changed.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Just the classic case in point, the rendition Verite, which I had.
Oh, absolutely. Like GPUs are expensive today, no doubt, but they can last a whole heck of a lot longer than they used to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They just generally tend to, you run them at lower frame rates and lower resolutions. But, there is the case of the DirectX 12 feature set. You kind of want that stuff now. You kind of want ray tracing. You want mesh shaders, certainly in the case of Alan Wake too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it is a sort of more gradual transition than we probably suspected there. But yeah, interesting nonetheless. But I think ultimately it does seem to be the dominant console that sets the agenda in terms of AAA game development. But then there's a lot more to PC than AAA. There's the esports side of things, there's the indie side of things. it's the performance targets do vary on a game by game basis, as do the feature set requirements. I'm sure there's a ton of games that just still run great on that 1650,
Absolutely.
but probably not more recent ones. I'm thinking more esports.
Esports.
Yeah.
Esports.